Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Game Masters 911, the only tabletop podcast on Twitch that I don't know is better than getting banged in the thumb with a hammer, I guess. I don't know. I can't think of anything funny to say to this evening. I am your host, game designer, and game master GeoQuester, also known as Jeff. And to my left is the lovely Mistress of Darkness and my wife, Susie Q.
Good evening, my lovelies.
So, welcome, minions, to another episode of Game Masters 911. Before we begin doing a lot of things, Susie Q has got a couple of announcements that she wants to go through.
Yes, I do. Oh, and okay, for those of you who are looking for games and a game to play, I have two. That's right, folks, two that are looking for players. First of all, get in touch with a man named Hellucard. He is running Darkest Dawn. It's a D&D 5th edition custom. He's using Roll20, and he's playing on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central.
No. That's not Central. That's Central European. CET is Central European time.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Central European time. That's UTC +1. It's 1 p.m. Eastern U.S. time for those who need to know. Discord for voice, and he needs 2 players, 18 years or older. Next, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Keyroll. He's running Lost Mines of Phandelver, which is a D&D 5th edition. He is using Fantasy Grounds, and he's playing Saturdays at 4 p.m. AST, which is 3 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. He's using Discord for voice, and he needs 2 players, a fighter and a cleric pre-built, family and newbie-friendly game.
Yep. These are some of our overseas members. I know, United States people. We are not used to having, the rest of the world playing games. Oh my god. But Hellucard is from the wonderful Icelandic nation of Sweden. And Keyroll is in the wonderful Atlantic time zone. He, I do believe, is South American. He's predominantly a Spanish speaker, but the game will be English speaking. Keyroll's game on Fantasy Grounds will be newbie friendly. Newbie as in brand new to D&D and brand new to Fantasy Grounds. He has an ultimate license, so free players are welcome. Please keep in mind that his other 2 players are minors, so there will be no swearing or adult content allowed. And both of them are going to be utilizing the GeoQuester Gaming Discord channel. So, without further ado, I'm going to give you a little overview on Discord. I apologize now if anybody has seen this before.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Why are you being stubborn? Why won't you use Discord? Just because it's new? Just because it's
So
fancy
there
and
you
you
go,
don't want to use it?
folks.
That's like your mom coming in your room and being like, "Yo, here's a new vacuum cleaner to clean your room, child. It's brand new and it's got all these awesome buttons and things." And you're like, "No, mom, I got a broom. I'm gonna use this broom to clean my room, mom." That's stupid. Don't be stupid. Don't use a broom. Use Discord.
All right, folks, so there you go. If you would like to join our Discord channel, please be sure to go ahead and follow the link in our chat and head on over to Discord and give yourself the opportunity to join some of the best games out there. On the other side of things, we have a number of players who are looking to play games. If you have a game, please be sure to log into our Discord channel and go to our LFG, which means looking for game channel, and be sure to post. We have a lot of players who are over there. We have well over 100 members at this point in time in Discord alone, and they're all looking for games. I mean, that's why we're together, as we want to play games.
Yep, so get in there, get in a game, post a game, run a game, do something with games. I'm not really sure.
All right, and then one final announcement. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, last week we had Doug Davison, the president and owner of SmiteWorks USA LLC, as our special guest. We talked about a lot of things that had to do with Fantasy Grounds. My patrons already know this information. They received their patron newsletter earlier today, along with all their stream experience points for February. And, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce and allow me to announce properly now. GeoQuester Gaming is now officially sponsored by SmiteWorks USA and Fantasy Grounds. Thank you very much, Doug Davison and the entire crew over at SmiteWorks for this excellent adventure opportunity.
Yes, yes. Woot woot. 2017 is going to bring bigger and better things for everyone.
Now, what does this sponsorship mean to all of you? This means that SmiteWorks is providing for us a standard license copy of Fantasy Grounds to be given away once a month to one lucky viewer in our final show of each month. So the last Thursday of every month, we will be giving away one copy of the standard license of Fantasy Grounds for free. Yes, I wish I had a voice echoer right there. But yes, it will be for free, ladies and gentlemen, and you get it.
Woot woot. So if y'all don't have a copy, y'all have friends that ain't got a copy, send them our way. We're going to hook them up.
And we are in the race for 250 followers. 250 followers, we're going to have something big to give away. Right at the moment, I have 190. We need 60 more followers. I think we're going to be able to get it by the end of this year.
Oh, I hope so.
So I think by the end of 2017, I think we'll finally see 250.
Woot woot.
Alrighty, so enough of the bullshit. Let's get on to the questions.
You want questions? You want questions? We ain't got no stinking questions.
Yes, I do want questions.
Okay, fine.
No, Rob. I really do mean year. I would like to see the end of the month, but I don't think that's going to happen.
It could. We'll find out, though. Okay, on to the questions. This is a patron question. How would you allow a player to create new spells in-game? Not so much a damage type reskin, but something completely new. For example, a spell that applied any damage done to one target to a second target, like a Voodoo Soulbind or something like that.
What we would do is, okay, I'm going to talk about damage spells for a moment. There are certain benchmarks that you need to look at for each level of spell. And in the DMG, they have custom dice and they have custom rules for applying damage at specific levels. What you want to do is you want to look at those benchmarks. For example, we'll use Magic Missile as a benchmark because that is a benchmark spell. It does a D4 damage. It does not miss. Well, the does not miss actually brings it down from a D6. If you're going to be splitting damage off into additional targets, you need to start looking at possibly going, for example, if a first level spell does a D6 damage typically, then if you want to have additional targets added into that, like say 2 targets, then it would be the initial damage would be a D4 to the first target and then a D4 to each additional target after that within a specific area. And then as you level that spell and use higher spell slots for it, you could increase the damage either by increasing the damage die or the number of damage die, or even the number of targets to be affected.
I kind of like that Voodoo Soulbind thing. That's kind of a cool thing. Interesting idea. Okay, next question. How important is a session 0, and how do you run one?
Session zeros are not the most important thing. I like to do them because session zeros bring the character from being by themselves into a party. And that's exactly what they're there for. It's to go from a solo life into a group life. Because I'm sorry, I mean, I like the idea of the whole you meet in a tavern and a halfling walks up to you and he has a quest ready, or there's a wanted poster out there and everybody needs to show up at the town hall at a certain time on a certain day, and oh look, 6 of you showed up and so now you're a party and you're going to be with each other forever. That doesn't usually work out very well. Um, Everybody has their own agendas. Everybody has a backstory. And if you're going to be running a long-term campaign, not necessarily something that's, pre-written, or like the pre-written modules. If you're going to be doing something like, for example, Storm King's Thunder, you don't necessarily need to have a backstory that your character has. But if your game master wants to give you guys a little bit more depth and a little bit more customization to what your character's wants and desires are, you can have a session 0 that relates somehow to the adventure you're going to be going on. For example, in Lost Mines of Phandelver, have a character who has some sort of disability looking for the Forge of Magic, or the Spell Forge, whatever it is, that's in which is in the final dungeon. So that's the only way he can have the curse removed from him, or the disease or disability removed from him, is by going to the Spellforge and doing some sort of, crazy ass ritual. That would be a session 0, learning that information and getting that character to go in that direction. Now he has a reason to be a part of this party, and a reason for this party to succeed, to get to a certain point at least, so he can do those kinds of things.
Okay. What is the best way to introduce villains as trustworthy and allies as suspicious?
Villains as trustworthy and allies as suspicious. Trustworthy villains are really difficult to build. As a game master, all of your NPCs that you're going to put forward, they're going to have a certain flair to them that you're not going to be able to hide. It is a personality quirk of yourself. It is a personality quirk of your players to be able to pick up on some of the nuances that you have when you run a game. Not everybody can be Matt Mercer. Not everybody can be a paid professional actor to sit there and bullshit you into making sure that your NPC is someone new and exciting and entirely neutral to the situation when they're actually the villain. To portray one of those kinds of villains, you need to build on that kind of stuff. But you'll always end up with at least one player, maybe not so much the NPC, not so much the PC, but the player themselves that will be suspicious of the NPC. Meanwhile, at the same time, building suspicion between player characters can be a lot of fun. You can always, if it's a tabletop group where you're sitting down facing each other face to face, you can send them bullshit messages. Write them down on a piece of paper, hand it to them, and it's just say, smile slyly. That kind of thing. That's the kind of stuff that you need to do. You play on the players to build that sense of suspicion. Whereas if you're doing it in a virtual tabletop, it's a lot more difficult to do. You can have secret missions. You can have counterproductive arguments. Players that disappear from time to time to go take care of something, and they come back scraped up, or they come back with a new item that they didn't have before. All those kinds of things are perfect opportunities for you to build suspicion between player characters. I don't generally, in my own games, I don't generally like to foster that suspicion between player characters, though it does make great role-playing experiences. Make them short-term, where these are obstacles that need to be overcome. that the player may be just secretive about what's going on in their lives because they're embarrassed or they have something, a grandiose plot involved that if they tell somebody, then their family is killed. That way the players can find out, because a group of 4 to 6 players sitting around a table who is suspicious of a specific other player makes for a poor mechanic, a poor trust in the group. So therefore, they're not going to be as harmonious when it comes to fighting the big bad guy at the end.
Okay. All right. Here's a question we hear quite a bit, and we've never really explained this. What is metagaming?
Metagaming is utilizing information from outside of game, which could be you're a game master and you've either played a module already, you've memorized the monster manual, you've memorized the DMG, you've memorized this, that, or the other thing, and utilizing it in-game as if your character knew it. For example, if you know as a game master that a goblin has anywhere between 3 and 8 hit points, and you play that way in game, when your barbarian hits for 12 hit points of damage on a specific goblin and that goblin doesn't fall down, you know as the player, and you say it out loud, hey, that goblin is tougher than usual, when your character's never seen a goblin before. That's metagaming. Knowing, for example, that Susie's character over here is a rogue, but she's playing like she's a ranger. Why doesn't she go over and pick that lock? Come on, Susie, go pick that lock. But no, I'm a ranger. No, you're not. You're a rogue. That's metagaming. Using information that your character has not seen, heard, smelled, what have you, because your player has that information, that is metagaming.
Okay, and what should you do about players that metagame? Like, they read the PDFs or other info about the adventures you're running, and then they question why you're not running the way it's stated in the PDF or other campaign info.
We have had a number of people ask this question in the past, and I have to say that I'm going to call one of our people out in chat who had this happen to him this last week. And he ended up telling this person to, if you don't like the way I'm running my game, then you can go ahead and leave my table. I 100% say that that is correct. People who metagame are nearly as bad as people who are rules lawyers. Metagaming is, in and of itself, kind of a subcategory of rules lawyers. Knowing, for example, that the NPC bad guys on the other side of a door can speak Draconic, and you as the game master say that they don't respond to you when you're speaking that language, that is metagaming. And arguing with the game master at the table about something like this, that's not something you should be doing. People who metagame ruin the enjoyment for everybody around them. There is a certain level of disbelief that everybody comes to the table with, and you need to go by that. Your characters need to experience things as the players need to experience things as the characters experience them. For example, the idea of speaking a different language. Just because the NPC is not reacting to you speaking a specific language could mean either A, you need to roll an insight check to see if he actually understood you, or B, maybe he doesn't actually know the language, or C, you're just, being lied to outright by an NPC. These kinds of things happen all the time. NPCs do not need to say, you got me, I do speak Draconic, damn, you figured me out. No, they don't have to do that. They can tell you to fuck right off in a different language and say something entirely different, because that's what they want to do. They don't have to respond in predicted ways. And if you're metagaming and you say, but they understand Draconic, and I just said something to them in Draconic, and they're responding to me in Common, and they're saying they don't understand. That's not right. That's not right. It says on page 35, paragraph 2, line 3 in the stat block that they speak Draconic, so they need to understand me. Well, then you know what? You're not having your immersion ruined by the game master. You're ruining your party's immersion by arguing with your game master.
Exactly. Couldn't have put it better. Okay. Now, how do I introduce new players to tabletop RPGs?
The best way to introduce a brand new player to RPGs is to tie them up with duct tape, sit them down, pry open their eyelids with toothpicks, and force feed them PDFs of all the core rule books until they can memorize them and recite them verbatim. That is the best possible way. I'm joking. You know I'm joking. The best possible way is to run a low-level game. Run something like, for example, if you're going to run 5th edition or Pathfinder or, oh god, pretty much any of those that are out there. Run something low-powered. Give them a little taste. I wouldn't say first level. Don't do first level. First level is a little too low. Give them a little taste of it. Give them a little bit of story. Don't do a lot of combat. Maybe do 1 or 2 combats, but give them a little taste of everything, a little smattering of everything. So 1 little combat here, do like a skill challenge type of thing over there. I know, how dare I say a 4th edition rule in 5th edition or Pathfinder. Do a little skill challenge, do a little, role play encounter, do something that is going to kind of hook them into a story. The way to get somebody into RPGs is to hook them by story.
Exactly. The better the story, the better the immersion, and all that happy stuff. Okay.
Things like the starter kit for 5th edition is nice, but if you want to bring somebody to your table, setting out this giant box set that has maps and booklets and all sorts of stuff is intimidating. If anything, you want to have a pre-built character waiting for a brand new person to come to your table, so that way they have the opportunity of just picking something up and asking questions. And foster those questions too. Tell them that, if you need to roll a perception check, it's in this column on your character sheet, or it's on this tab in your virtual character sheet. If you need to roll initiative, it's on this. And you step by step through that. You have to talk to them and teach them how this stuff works. And you have to be open to the idea that they may not remember these things, that there's a lot of stuff coming at them. Let them play with a dice. It's like, okay, roll the one that looks like a triangle. That's your 4-sided die. Roll the one that, looks like a cube, like an ice cube. That's your 6-sided die. You go through and you just step by step by step do it. Don't throw down a lot of stuff in front of them all at the same time. If you throw a lot of stuff down, you're going to chase them away because they're going to find it too intimidating to play a game.
Very true. Very, very true. Okay. Now, speaking of making characters and stuff like that, when you're sitting down to make whatever character you make, and you're keeping in mind that certain things have certain connotations to them, is necromancy in and of itself evil? And are all necromancers evil? Or is that just something that we have stuck in our brain?
I think this question was asked a couple of weeks ago. Necromancers are not evil, as by and large. Necromancy in and of itself as a type of magic is not evil. And I would never play it as evil. That's just the way it is. There can be evil necromancers. There can be good necromancers. Just like are you a good witch or are you a bad witch? Why, I'm not a witch at all. It's that kind of thing. Players can play whatever they want to play.
Okay. Is it okay to play a character while DMing? Basically a DM PC versus an NPC.
I prefer on my own table that I do not have DM PCs. Now let's definitely put a definitive line between these two things. An NPC is a person who comes and goes in the party. We're talking about allied NPCs, by the way, who comes and goes in the party, who has their own motivations, has their own things, and they are there to help drive the story forward. A DMPC is the game master is playing a character alongside the other player characters that is experiencing the adventure at the same time that the PCs are experiencing the adventure. There is bonuses and there are penalties to that. The bonuses are, if you ever need a little kick in the ass to get the plot to go in the right direction, you have this DMPC who can do it. The downside is that everything the DM knows, the PC knows. Once again, here comes that metagaming aspect. He knows that, oh, the MacGuffin that we're chasing is over there in that cave, but the PCs are totally missing it, so why don't I direct them in that direction? We get very close to railroading at that point, because now the DM PC becomes the de facto leader, quote unquote. We don't want that. We want the PCs to experience the world. We want the PCs to enjoy the world. Now, with that said, if you need to fill out a party and you have to have a PC there that does a specific job that you know is required of whatever you've written as the adventure, for example, you know you're going to need an arcane spellcaster to get past a specific event in the future, but there's no arcane spellcasters in your party, then by all means insert an NPC. But make it an NPC, not a DM PC. It could be a long-term NPC. It'd be someone who's there who's just that wizened Gandalf-esque kind of character that will help make the PCs go in a direction or see information in a different light. That is perfect. But yes, definitely let's say no to DM PCs, yes to full-time or part-time NPCs.
Okay. All right. How do you feel about the imbalance with two-weapon between the how do you feel about the imbalance between the attacks in two-weapon fighting? The bonus offhand doesn't get the extra attacks, etc., etc.
Oh, I find that to be absolutely fine. Offhand weapon attacks in two-weapon fighting, you only get one attack. Let's look at our own hands for a moment. I'm right-handed. I am not left-handed. My left-handed is absolutely retarded. I can barely scratch my nose without poking myself in the eye with my left hand. If I attempted to swing a sword with my left hand, I would be lucky to even have it go in the direction of an enemy, let alone hit one. There are very few individuals in this world that are truly ambidextrous that can use two hands to make attacks like that. And it takes years and years of practice and training, and your PC is not one of those people. Your PC is not a flourished dueler, which does things like, the Florentine style of fighting, or fencing, which is two weapons for those of you who don't know what Florentine style is. It's very, very rare to find anybody who can do that. So I am absolutely on board with the fact that that is a balanced mechanic of having your offhand weapon not dealing strength damage, only getting one, versus your regular two attacks. I have absolutely no problem with that at all. And I also have absolutely no problem with the fact that it is considered to be a bonus action.
Okay. All right. How do I find a group?
Well, just like we had mentioned earlier, please come on over to my Discord channel. There are plenty of people looking for gamers and plenty of people looking to start a game. So come on over to my Discord. You can find one there. Other than that, you can go to Reddit. And there's a looking for group Reddit page. I don't have the link right off the top of my head, but There is a looking for group Reddit page. There is, for example, Fantasy Grounds has their own Discord channel now, and they have a looking for group. Roll20 has their own website and a looking for group. Let's see. D20 Pro has their own looking for group. So basically, whatever program you want to use, utilize that. If you want to find gamers in your local area, go to a gaming shop. Go to your friendly local gaming store and post a poster on one of their bulletin boards. Almost every gaming shop I have ever seen in the country has some kind of play here kind of thing as a bulletin board set up somewhere near the register. Say, hey, can I throw a tear sheet up here so it has my phone number, my name, saying, hey, I'm looking to play a game, or hey, I'm looking to start a game, and they'll be probably more than happy to let you do that. Wizards of the Coast, Paizo Publishing, Decipher Games, all sorts of them, Goodman Games, they all have looking for group areas in their forums. They have them on Twitter. They've got them pretty much everywhere. So all it takes is going out and looking, and you will find it. Ye who seek shall find.
Okay. Now, I just got a new module for 5th edition conversion from Pathfinder. It uses that world and not Forgotten Realms. What would be good ways to introduce it as a starting point for a level 1 party, besides magically transporting them without notice? How would be a good way to introduce it in an ongoing campaign or adventure?
Just because it says, for example, that it belongs to, the world of Pathfinder versus Forgotten Realms, that means absolutely nothing. Just change some of the names. Change some of the towns. Say if it belongs in Forgotten Realms and not Eberron, then by all means change the name of Waterdeep to the Crystal Spires. Shadowzar or whatever it is. I can't remember right off the top of my head. But changing from one location to another is simple. We've been doing it right along with all the D&D modules that have come out for 5th edition already. For example, let's see, the Takesis Adventures for the beginning. What was it? Tyranny of Dragons, that one. The Tyranny of Dragons set, that was almost 100% Dragonlance combined with 4th edition D&D in Forgotten Realms. Then we got Ravenloft in Forgotten Realms. Well, Ravenloft was originally Greyhawk, and then it became its own campaign setting. So that was new. We've gone through these iterations over and over and over and over again. We had Temple of Elemental Evil as, one of the other big adventures there. So, yeah, we've had them already. Just change the names. That's it. You don't have to say, okay, you're magically teleported to the Forgotten Realms, or you're magically teleported to, land XYZ. You're magically teleported to Athos and Dark Sun. You can just go ahead and just reskin it. Change a couple of names.
Okay, now when upgrading the difficulty of encounters to account for higher level PCs, what is a good formula? And more important, is it more fun for PCs to engage more monsters of a lower level to up the difficulty, or to change the encounter more by adding to the existing monsters high level ones that can still fit in the storyline if there is any? This is because there are a lot of modules and adventures that start you up for the first 5 levels, and there's less that start you up to level 10 or higher, and so on and so forth.
All right. Here's a caveat. Once again, the more dice you roll, the more opportunities you have to critically hit or critically fail. That always throws your numbers off. So therefore, lots of low-level monsters are not always the better way of going, because you will get paper cut to death. Keep in mind, critical hits are a 5% chance. A 1 in a 20 is a 5% chance of happening every time you roll a die. The more often you roll a die, the more often critical hit will come up and skew your entire game towards a critical hit. So be very, very careful with that. On the other hand, a specific high level NPC that meets against the players, you could wipe out an entire party with a single spell. Because, for example, if the NPC has access to Fireball, then you could be throwing out enough dice and damage to actually waylay everybody inside an area of effect. So you've got to balance it out for your players. This is where pre-written modules don't really look at the players too much, and you really, really need to pay attention to your players, their wants, their needs, and their desires. If you have a party of people who's very good against a whole shit ton of minions, then by all means go ahead and keep throwing a bunch of minions against them. If you have players who are the Dragon Slayers, who look for one big beefy-ass bad guy, then throw a big beefy-ass bad guy. Now, as far as the idea of the modules that are pre-made are meant to get you into gaming. They're only meant to bring you so far. They're not meant for long-term campaigns that last for years. They're meant to get you started, to get you gaming, to get your palate wetted, so you want to game more, you want to go out and explore, you want to have more adventures of your own, you want to search things out. And by level 10, your characters are supposed to have backgrounds, and they're supposed to have lives, and they're supposed to have this, they're supposed to have that, that kind of make them want to focus on other things. And by all means, go ahead and do so. That's why high-level games are not really available, is because by then you're supposed to be able to do it yourself.
Okay, now how do you handle the case when a player needs to bail during a gaming session after it's in progress?
Say that one again slowly.
How do you handle when a player needs to bail during a gaming session after it's already started?
Like permanently bail, or are we talking just like, hey, I gotta leave early today?
The person who asked the question was not specific. So let's go with both.
Okay. If a person wants to leave your game after the game has already begun, then by all means, let them leave. Don't try to force them to stay, or else they're just going to make everybody else miserable. If a person needs to leave because of an emergency or some other such thing, like a short-term kind of basis, like, oh shit, it's snowing and I need to go home before the roads are closed and I need to sleep on your couch, then let them go. I mean, there's nothing really earth-shattering about somebody leaving a game.
Nope. Definitely nothing earth.
And I do have an answer to Starman's question in chat. Do you dare open your limited edition Volo's Guide to Monsters? You put it in a sealed bag, and you sleep with it in a safe somewhere under your bed, buried in concrete, and you leave it be.
There you go, Starman.
Do not go rubbing your brand new, limited edition Volo's Guide all over your sweaty, hairy ass body.
Ew. Okay. Speaking of sweaty, hairy ass bodies, how do you guys feel about flying races like the Aarakocra or the variant Tiefling? I've heard of other GMs that are banning them.
There are some people who do ban them, and that's because they don't want to work with a three-dimensional map. I can understand that. There is a certain level of, oh shit, 3 dimensions does not translate well on a 2-dimensional surface, like for example in a virtual tabletop, or even on your own kitchen table. It doesn't convert well. So I can understand why certain game masters will keep flight away from it. I personally have no issue with flight. I can give a damn about flight. If somebody's going to fly, they're going to fly. Okay, fine, go ahead and fly. It's just another mechanic to keep as an idea. Now, here's a quick and dirty way to go ahead and do this. Keep extra dice nearby. Make sure to let your players know that there's going to be maybe a ceiling, like a ceiling height, that you may want to utilize for certain games. It's just like having a map on the table that has defined borders. Beyond this, here be monsters kind of thing. Do the same thing when it comes to heights. Keep an extra d20 next to that character. For example, if we're doing this on a kitchen table, keep an extra d20 next to that character. For every tick of the d20 is 5 feet. It's a 1 foot, it's a 5 foot square that they are up in the air. So all the way up to 20, that's 100 feet up in the air. Just keep those things in mind when you're utilizing ranges. Now, if you're going to be using a virtual tabletop like Fantasy Grounds or D20 Pro or Roll20, keep an extra token nearby from numbered from level 1 to from 1 to 20 that has the same idea, that this is 1 square, this is 2 squares, 3 squares, 4 squares, all the way up to 20 squares, and do that kind of stuff. That way you can still get your 3-dimensional combat.
Okay, now speaking of mechanics, can you please explain the pluses and minuses on using the Pathfinder obstacle cards over the 5th edition obstacle chart?
The obstacle chart is, okay, there's no benefit or penalty to utilizing either one of them. I don't prefer to use the chart for 5th edition because I want to be able to plan out my encounter. Now, if you're going to have a random chase that suddenly happens, by all means, go ahead, bust out that chart, and go ahead and play with it, and do all sorts of weird shit with it. That's fine, go for it. Matter of fact, more power to you. I've done it myself. But I like using the Pathfinder chase rules in 5th edition because I'm able to give players a plus-minus aspect. I'm able to say, this is the easy route that doesn't really gain you anything. This is the more difficult route, which could gain you more. I'm able to do that kind of thing. You can use both systems together. You can say, okay, on this Pathfinder card, on this chase card, you are able to roll such and such and give a certain number from the table that you're allowed to have. And you can do that. That's fine. Go ahead. Mix and match and do all sorts of stuff together. Make it unique. Make it your own.
Okay. And what is your take on firearms in a fantasy setting?
I love me some dwarven firearms. I love them. I love them. The idea that a dwarf carries around a blunderbuss, like a dwarf ranger carries around a blunderbuss, yes, I know, it comes from World of Warcraft and everything like that, but I think it's a fucking great idea. I have always loved that idea since I saw it way back when in 2nd edition when they released the Maztica setting for Forgotten Realms, and I was overjoyed with it. I mean, I love them. I love the idea that people have firearms. In Wraithborn, people have firearms. I have a gunslinger that's a rogue archetype, and I allow the ranger who picked up an extra feat to utilize firearms instead of needing to use a bow. I love them. Matter of fact, I love them so much that the patrons next month for March will actually be able to get themselves some 5th edition firearms.
Woot woot! Okay. Now, how would you introduce time jumping elements from a game system like Continuum into a D&D 5th edition game?
Oh boy, Continuum. Now there's a game system from the past. In 1999, I think it was called the DreamWorks Game Company. Actually, it's called Etherco. Yep. Etherco Incorporated made a game called Continuum, which was all about time jumping. You needed to have a 3-ring binder for your character sheet because you had to keep track of all your plot lines and timelines. Now, time is of a very interesting topic right now because time is also the theme that we're using in the February patron stuff right now. Having time jumping plot lines is very, very simple. Matter of fact, I had one of the patrons ask me earlier today, actually 2 hours ago, how to write an adventure that would be time based. It's all about writing small linear plots that always foreshadow each other. Encounter 1 could be encountering a group that holds a MacGuffin. That MacGuffin then leads on to an NPC that explains what time is, which then leads on to a ritual that sends them backwards in time with the MacGuffin. At which point, the next encounter in the past, they lose the MacGuffin, or it's stolen from them. Or they meet that NPC who is the expert in the future, but as a young person, and they help that person, and etc., etc., etc. What it does is it basically just sets up ideas. Your initial encounters are the foreshadowing of past events. And your future events that you utilize, your later events in the adventure module, always assume the players were successful in the earlier events. As the game master, this is where it becomes important for you to prep, because there may be certain things that happen that you really need to adjust for later on. So be sure to watch that.
Okay, now, how do you set up an investigation in a sci-fi game for a group that might not have a ton of experience with investigation? I currently have a group that is staking out some CIA types, and I want to set up clues that are hinting to what they are. Any tips on that?
Investigation for players that are not Sherlock Holmes can be a little trying. I know from experience that you cannot put a ring in their nose and lead them around. It just doesn't work well. But you can drop hints and clues through skill checks. Skill checks are the game master's great way of saying, hey, look, this is what's going to be happening next, or hey, look, this is the next place to go. Or bar that, just literally hit them in the face with a clue that leads them in a specific direction. It may sound a little bit like railroading, and it is, kinda, but what you do is you give them enough tools and enough information to be able to make their own assumptions. This is also a great time to start utilizing player handouts.
Okay, now, how many campaigns is too many to be playing, running, whatever, excluding one-shots?
How many is too many?
I don't think there's an answer for that, because I think it all depends on you as the person. How many can you handle? And you have to keep in mind that it can't be taking away from the other aspects of your life either, such as work, a social life, friends, family, stuff like that.
Exactly. It's all depending on the person. There are people out there that have absolutely nothing else to be able to do other than roleplay. It's a fact of life. There are people who sit down in front of their computer and they play all day. If they're able to do it, then they're able to do it. That's fine. I, for one, cannot do that. I need to get up. I need to have a break from time to time from gaming. I have to. That's why I do things like drawing maps. It may be gaming oriented, but at the same time, it's relaxing to me. I don't have to think. I don't have to do a lot of things. I'm just sitting back and I'm drawing. Some people sit back and they write fan fiction. As a matter of fact, I have a couple of my patrons in the chat right now who do nothing but write fan fiction about weird stuff that has happened in their games. And I love them for it, because they share them with us and we have a good laugh over them, or like, oh, that's a cool idea. You know, we do that kind of stuff. Susie and I like to go watch movies together. We try to have downtime. You need to deflate. You have to. Just like anything in your life, you need to have it in moderation. And if you're asking the question, hey, am I in too much? Then you're probably in too much. And you need to actually kind of start dialing it back a little bit.
Okay. I want to have a campaign with a deep narrative, but I want to avoid politics for obvious reasons. How can I make the world believable without politics?
Then don't include politics. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, it's as simple as that. Just don't include politics. If you are not the kind of person who wants to include a political agenda to your campaign, then don't include a political agenda. Uh, Look at some of your favorite, movies. Sometimes they have politics in them, sometimes they don't. Lord of the Rings had a lot of politics in it. Um, let's see, things like the Hunger Games, lots of politics. Those kinds of things, lots and lots of politics throughout the entire thing because they're kind of a political adventure intrigue kind of thing. It's a person against the establishment. Which is a typical trope for a lot of game masters. It's a small group against the world or against a power group. You don't need to do that. You don't need to have politics. You don't need to say the king in this region is, does said that all adventurers are illegal, so therefore you are now part of the underground. You don't have to say that kind of stuff. You don't have to do those kinds of things. If it's not directly impacting the player characters, or you don't want it to directly impact the characters, then by all means, don't include a Lord Dampnuts. Don't include that kind of stuff that would trigger other people or would make your world feel like it's become a newspaper headline. Don't do that kind of stuff. Just play a game and enjoy sitting back and playing a game.
I like that. Okay, now, do you like the sound effects bot? And will we see it again in game?
Yes. Ooh, I've got a question for Susie Q.
All right, hit me up.
You finally got to play a science fantasy game this last Sunday. How do you enjoy playing with nothing but other female players in a game like this?
I have to say it's definitely a change. It's not a bad change, but it's definitely a change. Having all female gamers, I find that the other players that are playing with me, they tend to think things out a lot more than my male counterparts. They're not all shoot first, ask questions later. Some of them are more, no, hold on, let's do this smarter, not harder kind of thing.
I can tell as the game master that is an entirely different creature running for 6 female players. I have a couple of players in my game who are old hats. They've been gaming for a while. That would be Pale Valkyrie, Zelikar, and Susie Q. The 3 of them have been playing for a long, long time. And then I've got one who's been playing for a few months. That would be Alara. She's been playing for a few months, but she's definitely a very creative idea type of person. She's a fantasy and a fiction writer on the side, and so she likes to write stories. And then I've got 2 brand new players, people who have barely played anything in the past, and that would be Mrs. Minty and Smitty Birdie. The 2 of them are brand new to gaming. So I've discovered that, like Susie said, yeah, they think things out more, and they're a lot more about the story elements and the interpersonal relationships and backstories that they each have, more so than having an all-male group. The estrogen definitely flows a lot heavier with them than the testosterone, but let's be honest. Pale, smashed face, and the rest of the ladies got right in there and mixed it up toe to toe with absolutely no problems whatsoever. And I had a lot of fun once we got into it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like this was so much fun. And as I said, it's a completely different beast playing with an all-female cast. It's not bad. I'm enjoying it. I thought there was going to be a lot more because all of us have very, very strong personalities. All of us do, and I thought there was going to be a lot more with just like bumping and grinding amongst the personalities.
Yes, yes. I thought there was going to be a lot more aggression between them, a lot more friction. but they seem to, every one of them fell into place like they've been playing together for years. Even the brand new players came up with ideas that vet players would never have even thought of. And I was really very, very impressed with all of my female players, and I'm very, very happy with it. But on the opposite side of that coin, after the game, I did receive a number of private messages and emails from, they had to have been obviously male players and male watchers. Um, Part of the whole Iron Maiden's idea was as a social experiment. I had been reading for months online a blog by a woman who is a female gamer. And she was talking about rape threats. She was talking about death threats. She was talking about how she was sexualized at tables, at conventions, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought it was a bunch of hoo-ha and a bunch of bullshit. Susie, same thing. Susie's been playing for over 20 years. You know, it's been quite a long time for her, and there's been a lot of females that I have in my games that they've been playing a long time and they've never seen these kinds of things. I had never seen them until Iron Maiden's episode 1 was done. And then I started getting the emails and I started getting the messages from a bunch of very sick individuals that either watch things on YouTube or watch things live or watched a VOD. And I have to say that some of these people who are out there are trolls and absolutely sick in the fucking head. The suggestions they had for the ladies and the encounters to come up ranged everywhere from the laughable tentacle penis monster that's going to be in space, all the way through to quests that had something to do with forcible sexual encounters with aliens, and they were dead serious about these things. And I turned these people over to Twitch for those who had private messaged me and had their accounts banned. I also spoke to a few other authorities when it came to some of these things because they were downright not just sexist. I mean, I can understand being a misogynist. I am a mild misogynist myself, but these things were horrible, horrible things to say about another human being. And I will tell all of you right now out loud that if I ever receive another email or another comment in those veins again, I will make sure that every single person is banned, or I just won't stream the Iron Maidens again. But that's not fair to them. These girls deserve to be streamed. These girls have every right to be streamed, and these girls have every right to play in an all-female group where they feel comfortable. And I will, as their quote-unquote Geodaddy, I will always, always be their champion for them. And how dare anybody say that women can't roleplay, because these women are better than most of the men I've ever gotten to roleplay with.
So there you go. If you're listening, you misogynistic little twats, you can go stuff it in your cornhole and smoke it somewhere else.
Exactly. But all right, let's ask me one more question so we can end this on a light note, because that was kind of a dark note.
All right. Last question. Why did we pick GM 911 and not GM 411? 911 is emergency response. 411 is information.
Because I learned after watching a number of Ask a DM, Ask a GM, player questions, helps, informations, etc., I learned that the information that was being given out was not information that was useful. And a lot of players had information that they needed today, kind of thing. That's why we asked people in chat to send us messages in PMs immediately or through Discord immediately, is that way we can have a back and forth, a response. It's an emergency. You need to know this information. I'm giving you the information as quickly as I possibly can. To be honest, 90% of the questions that we get within hours of the show or during the show.
And I love every little minute of it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe that is our last question for tonight. I would like to thank everybody for coming by and watching. We have a lot more information that's going to be coming up very, very soon. If you would like to, please be sure to come over to our Discord or to sponsor us through our Patreon. I would like to thank Smiteworks USA for being our official sponsor, and I definitely will be running a lot more games on Fantasy Grounds. We will be having a bunch more new stuff coming out. And, ladies and gentlemen, for myself and for Susie Q, I would like to thank you for coming. Have a very good evening.
Behave, my lovelies, and good night.